So back when I did my top 10 for life video update in December, I asked the audience, would you like to see a top 100? The results were mixed. Some of you said 100 is just way too much. Let's just do 50. And a number of you said, yes, absolutely. I would love to see a top 100 video. So I'm going to kind of split the difference and do this in two parts. This will be part one, and I'll do part two upcoming. This was incredibly difficult. Like, is this really happening? Am I going to tell you what my top 100 is? Because I felt as I was putting the list together, like I was betraying the other fragrances on the shelf. You know how you go to a shelter to pick out an animal that has maybe been abandoned, and you look across and they're looking at you with those beautiful puppy dog eyes saying, pick me, choose me, love me. I felt like that's what my fragrances were saying to me as I was scanning the shelves. So I did this as quickly as possible, and from like a gut feeling, I just used my visceral reaction to the bottle to decide if it was in the top 100 or not. I reserve the right for this list to change over time. That's really quite a natural thing, especially having a channel and reviewing a lot of new fragrances. Things rotate in and out of the collection. So if I tell you that I really enjoy something today, that is my honest opinion. And maybe in a year, I will like something a little bit different than what you see in the video now. It's just the nature of a hobby like this where you're trying lots of new things. So let's get into it. This is in no particular order. I could not rank them. Oh my God, that would have really just like blown my mind. My mind would have looked like the emoji with the head exploding because it was hard enough just to put 100 names down on a list and forsake all others in my collection, at least for this round. So no olfactive family order, no brand order, nothing. I'm just going to talk about them as I wrote them down. For the sake of time, I will just do a brief description of like the accords that stand out to me, the way that it makes me feel, and if I have any memory associated with it. Let's do this. So I'll start with a new release from 2024. This is Daisy Wild from Marc Jacobs with the crazy kitschy top on it. I love the little stems going down into the bottle that look like a real vase. This is a super duper happy spring and summertime fragrance, although it has enough body yaddy yaddy to take you through the entire year. It's juicy, it's fresh, it's floral, it's a little bit sweet, and maybe even has some fruity nuances to it. It's a fairly long lasting fragrance, and I associate the feeling of happiness, joyfulness, living my best life in spring and summer sunlit days with this fragrance. An old-time favorite of mine that I've had in my collection for many years, and I've gone through many bottles, and I'm glad to see that it went from discontinued to back on the market last year. This is from Origins, and it's called Ginger Essence. So Origins is I think they do cosmetics and skincare. I've never purchased any of their other stuff, just this, and then the body souffle that goes with this. This is one of the happiest citrus spicy fragrances ever. I called it like a fairy fragrance because it doesn't have, at least that you can sense, heavy base notes at all. There aren't woody notes. There's nothing like that, amber notes, any of those notes that add a lot of base and weight to a fragrance. This is very light, wispy, airy. I think it has lime, definitely ginger, and I think some other citrus, maybe lemon, and it's very, very light. It has a sweetness to it to cut the tartness from the citrus fruits, and it's just delightful. It feels very wispy, very fun on the skin. I have incredibly fond memories of this because of my friend and I going to try this out when it was, I don't know if it was first released at that time. It was when we first discovered it, and we just had a great time in the store trying it. There was at the time like a salt scrub that went with it to sort of clean your hands. We used that too, and then the souffle is just so wonderful. The body cream that goes with this. One of my favorite all-time fragrances, a little bit fleeting. It's maybe a half a day's wear at the most, but one of the most beautiful, happy, dead of summer type of scents that is just always uplifting. I'll go next to one that maybe people don't anticipate to be on a list, especially on a woman's channel. This is COCCOBELLO from Helley. Love the simplicity and class of this bottle. This one, it has this very subtle woody greenness, this almost like airy coconut. I love the classy simplicity of this bottle, and that's kind of what I like about the fragrance too. It's a pretty subtle fragrance. I mean, it has some presence on you, but there's a subtlety, a gentleness about it. It is like the most well-mannered tropical fragrance probably ever. It has this green woodiness to it with a touch of like airy, wispy coconut. And it reminds me of a tropical memory that I don't even have. So I think of men in linen suits with the fedora hats on with a cigar. There's nothing like cigar-like in here, but that image of old school Cuban gentleman or something comes to mind with this. It does have some masculine tones, but I find it, for my particular taste, to be very, very unisex and wonderful for spring and summer. Let's go over to one of my favorite winter fragrances that I wear sparingly because it can be very cloying and heavy, and you can get sick of it if you wear it too often. But man, is it a gorgeous special occasion fragrance or date night fragrance? This is Dior Addict. I love this. It has this thickness to it, this beautiful vanilla and I think tonka bean combo that feels dense. It feels very sexy and alluring. There's jasmine in the fragrance and just like this very, very thin thread of delicate greenness. You wouldn't pick that up if you didn't know that the greenness was in there. I joke around about this being the fragrance that gets people to say to me as a compliment that I smell expensive. It is very regal, decadent, very sort of like opulent in nature. So this is a wonderful date night fragrance, very heavy, very mature. This next little gem is new to my collection as of last year, and I got back into this fragrance as a result of a review that Tammy Roxanne did on her channel about it. And this is Gucci Bamboo. This is the EDP, and the bottle is interesting with its sort of multifaceted nature and the little bamboo motif here at the top. This is another very happy, comforting fragrance. There are florals, there's something very creamy and almost soapy in it. And there's, if I'm not mistaken, a sandalwood base. But what stands out to me is the creamy nature of this and the very soft, gentle florals that have a sort of soapy touch overall. This is beautiful and easygoing and comforting. And I just can't say enough good things about this, especially as a now affordable fragrance that you can find on the gray market for very inexpensive. This next fragrance, people either love it or they just don't understand the hype and it's not for them. This is 100 Silent Ways from Nishane. This is one of those fragrances like it sits on my shelf. I forget that it's there, but when I notice it and pick it up and smell it, I'm like, I want to be you. This is a fragrance that if I had to turn into a bottle of fragrance, maybe this would be one of the contenders. It's just so feminine, warm. There's a sweetness to it. It has a vanilla base and some sandalwood. And then it has this beautiful combination of tuberose and this sweetness. There's peach in here as well, but it even has a touch of powderiness. There's orris in the fragrance. So I would say more than anything, vanilla, very sort of dense powderiness, and these gorgeous sweet florals. It's beautiful and very long lasting, and maybe one of my most feminine fragrances. And you just can't go wrong with this. It is, for me, very beautiful. I'll go next to a fragrance that I don't wear often, but when I do wear it, I think it is interesting, unique, and beautiful in its own way. This is from Olfactive Studio, and it's called Iris Shot. I don't absolutely love these bottles. Like this is, a sleeve that the bottle sits in. So I just don't love the design, but it looks okay sort of all together. And I feel like this looks like a little porthole into like a cruise ship or something. I always forget the name of the cereal that this reminds me of, Wheat Chex or something like that. I'll see if I can find a picture and put it up. It's like a little rectangular thing, and there's like this grainy, weedy smell to like a grainy, weedy smell to that cereal that reminds me of this. And this also has an iris and like a buttery texture to it that I just love. It's almost like a comforting cloud of fragrance. So you do have to like iris to enjoy this. It is called Iris Shot, and you have to like the smell of like crushed cereal, the very grainy types of cereals. I guess that's all I want to say about this, and it's unique, and that's why it's in here. Next from Mind Games is Queening. Look, people complain about the price of Mind Games. I get it. They are redonkulously expensive, and some of them don't last that long. And this is one of those. Like Queening isn't a very long lasting fragrance. I do, however, get a good, I don't know, 4-ish hours out of it. I have heard people say that this fades on them very quickly. And I have heard other people say that this lasts for them the whole day. So try it for yourself and see what you think. But this has to be one of the most delicious vanillas ever. It says orris and vanilla on the little plaque here as the two notes that the perfumer wanted you to really pick up. And I get that. Orris for me is like this dense powderiness that I enjoy in some fragrances. If something is way too powdery, it can be a little bit off-putting for me. It has to be balanced with some other notes, like not be the primary player, although I do like powdery fragrances, but you have to be in the mood for them. This is just the right amount of dense powderiness from the orris. Beautiful, soft, subtle vanilla. And I don't remember if it's a note in the fragrance or not, but I get almost like this creamy coconut that has like a buttery edge to it. And it's just super delightful. One of the most feminine, beautiful clouds of vanilla, powdery, creamy, powdery and creamy can exist together. And they do in here. And it is just, it's so pretty, rather intoxicating as a fragrance. So definitely try this out and see if it's your cup of tea. I'll go next to Psychedelic Love from Initio. I like a lot from this house. This is one of the most intoxicating, powdery, sweet, floral fragrances like in the history of ever. I don't remember all the notes. I think it has This also has sandalwood in the base, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe it has either an almond note or a vanilla note, but something that comes across very sweet and buttery. And just like a hypnotic combination of very light, soft, delicate florals in here, this is one that hugs you close to the skin. It's warm, it's inviting. It is the most sort of sensual hug in a bottle. And I do mean the word sensual because there's some a little sensual about this. Sensual hug in a bottle. Very, very lovely, just pretty, like your skin, but better in the most comforting feminine way possible without being mature. This is a crowd pleaser for all ages. Then I'll go to the beautiful Dolce Melodia. So I've talked about not really liking the velvet on the bottle, but I can live with that. Ooh, ooh. This to me is pretty crushed up summer fruits with a beautiful base of musk. And there's some woodiness here. I don't know if I've mentioned that before or if other people have mentioned that, but there's this sort of woody, musky base to this. And with the fruits, it is delightful. It makes me think of spring and summer dresses, being light on your feet, smelling sweet and fruity and musky, and just like frolicking through fields somewhere, frolicking through the hillside, like the hills are alive with the sound of music. Ah. What would a top fragrances list be without what I consider to be my signature scent still to this day? I've been wearing this 2025 for the better part of 15 years or so and been through multiple bottles. This is not the actual bottle. I have decanted a bottle into this because the original bottle had like a faulty atomizer. This is, I don't even know why I'm showing you this little bottle, still from Jennifer Lopez. I'll put the actual bottle shape up on the screen. This, it does no wrong for me. So if you have tried this fragrance and like it, please leave it in the comments. If you don't like it, please don't tell me because I don't get offended about a lot, but when people don't like still, I'm like, are you okay? Because to me, it is such a likable, like a universally likable fragrance. I'm just kidding. Of course, we all have our preferences. Just a joke, friends. But this for me is one of the cleanest smelling fragrances without being soapy. So it doesn't smell like soap, yet it has this very vibrant, almost sparkly, clean nature to it. Like the way that champagne fizz feels to you, it doesn't feel like champagne fizz, but it smells like that feeling. I don't know if that makes any sense. The notes that stand out, like a crisp green apple note, a little bit of tea. There's a rice note. I don't pick up a lot of rice in here. There's sandalwood in the base, but what all notes aside, and there's some florals. All notes aside, this is a, like I said, a very sparkly, clean, happy fragrance. I associate great feelings with this. There's also a little bit of greenness, like a little bit of greenness. But it's all like, it's so fresh. It's fresh, it's uplifting. I have wonderful memories of this fragrance and being out on the town in New York City when I was younger, 15 years ago. So this is just, it's just wonderful. And I can't get enough of this. I have backup bottle upon backup bottle of this. I don't even know if it's made anymore. I think it's discontinued, but it's available on the gray market and really inexpensive. You can get this as low as $20 or so. Then one from the House of Sillage. I like a lot of fragrances from the House of Sillage, but the one that made it onto this list because of the feeling that I get from it, and I don't have the full bottle. One day I will, but I do have a lot of decants. And so this is one of their beautiful like travel spray bottles. You know, and you can get the travel sprays. And I like to travel with this one. This is, I didn't tell you what it's called. It's called Holiday. Holiday. This to me comes across like the best citrus woody combo ever with a touch of greenness. It also is another one that has a level of freshness, sophistication, depth, and warmth. To be like a citrus woody fragrance, this has a lot of warmth and I love to wear it. And I associate this with my trip to Disney World probably about a year ago because I wore it. I think it was either on the plane going or on the plane coming back. So every time I see Holiday, I think about that great vacation. Next is Plume Impression Murmure Det. If you are a sandalwood lover and if you like fig, the combination of those here is to die for. Divine fragrance, has the most sophisticated presence in the room. It is like class personified walked into the room. The sillage off of this fragrance is tremendous and beautiful, but not overwhelming. It also has this clean yet woody sense to it. It's like light in the air. It doesn't have heaviness like some of the fragrances that I'm going to talk about next are pretty heavy fragrances. This has like a crispness and a lightness to it that I think is divine. Think of sandalwood, a very sort of creamy accord, but in the lightest way possible. There's fig. Fig is a note that I can sometimes struggle with, but in general, the fig in this fragrance has just this very sort of creamy subtle greenness, like a hint, a splash of green. And it's just, you have to try this out. I don't know how else to describe this. Definitely get yourself a decant of this. You have to enjoy sandalwood. That's first and foremost. And you have to not be afraid of a subtle green accord. And the combination of that is probably one of the best fragrances that I tried last year. I go next to a classic. This one has been in my collection for a while. The bottle I'm going to show you is newer. I had an older formulation of it and went through that. I actually wore this very, very mature fragrance in my 30s, and that's nuts. This is Christian Dior's Dune. If you've watched me for a while, you may remember that I wore this, was it last summer, and about choked myself out. This is not a summer fragrance. This is very much like a cold weather stunner. I'll describe it in a second, but I mentioned that I wore this and kind of choked myself out because it was warm and like, what the hell was I thinking? So I put it away in the closet and came back to it, and now it's back on the shelf with its friends. This is one of the most mysterious smelling fragrances. You either, again, another one that you love it or you can't stand it. I love the name of it, Dune, and I love the bottle shape. Okay. It does, because of the name, evoke for me tall sand dunes like in the Sahara that shift with winds and so forth. There is a deep ambery base to this. I believe there's woodiness in the fragrance too. There are so many notes, but the fragrance smells like the color of the juice. It has this incredible, like, warm goldenness to it. It also reminds me of heat, like dryness of heat. There are, I believe, florals, even some fruity notes, and a bunch of things happening in this fragrance. I don't remember all the notes. I just know that it's ambery. It has like a very, very pale woodiness in the background. I think this is the kind of fragrance that you have to have an appreciation for vintage smelling fragrances, and you want it to be a little bit odd and strange. Dune is the one. If you like this fragrance, I welcome you to share like your description of this, because I find it such a difficult fragrance to describe, but one absolutely worth having in my collection. Let me talk about a longtime gem that I remember wearing in the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in that time period. And it reminds me very much of being very young. You know, when you're young, you think you have the whole world at your fingertips, your whole future ahead of you. And I remember running through the streets, not literally running, walking through the streets of New York and my high school wearing this. And this is Eternity, 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 Eternity from Calvin Klein. This is a fragrance that I keep and I love because of the nostalgia associated with it. It is one of the loudest, rudest, most bombastic fragrances I have. And I can't believe that I would douse myself in this and actually go out in public. It's marked by a very distinct carnation note. It's just like this big, huge bouquet of florals. And it also has this sort of like, I don't know how to describe this, almost like a beautiful, soft, sweet metallicness to it with that enormous, big carnation note and other florals. And I can't pick out what else is in here, maybe like a dose of hairspray or something. But it's a fragrance that is incredibly loud, incredibly projecting. A spray or two will do. If you do much more, you are going to knock people out. It is incredibly strong. So I like to just sniff this. This is one that I've worn since I purchased this, maybe 2 or 3 times. And don't think to reach for it because I associate it with the past and because it is such a strong fragrance that you have to be in a certain mood to wear this. This is a newer fragrance, and I haven't talked about it on my channel much, a little bit. And the reason that it's in here, even though I haven't talked about it, is because it was such a captivating scent when I tried it that I felt like it deserved a place. This is from Hermes, and this is Barenia. Ooh, oh my God. I think it's a plum note. That's the fruity part of this. I don't remember, but it is deep, juicy, dark fruitiness with beautiful woodiness, and I believe there's patchouli in the fragrance as well. And it reminds me of a vintage scent with a modern, classy feel. This is, you know how much I hate this, but it actually just applies. This is like a boss babe kind of scent. You feel like you own the world when you put this on. It does have a vintage flair, so if you like modern fragrances, this is not going to be your cup of tea. But if you've been looking for something that gave you that old school feeling of being like your highest feminine self, but in a commanding way, Barenia is the one. It really just surprises me over and over again when I smell it. Beautiful. Okay, I'll talk about this more in an upcoming video. Then we all know the next one, people love it or hate it. I'm on the love side, and this is Amouage Guidance. It's rose and hazelnut and sandalwood, and I believe there's vanilla and lots of other things happening. It just smells in charge. That's what it smells like. It smells in charge, like Barenia. These two could be good friends, very different personalities, but similar feels. This one has a lot more feminine edge than I think this one does, which is probably more unisex, although it has some fruitiness to it. I won't go on and on about this. Love the bottle, beautiful. I've talked at length recently about Fragrance Du Bois Cavort. I think there's saffron, rose, and woods, and maybe a little bit of spiciness. And I pick up in this fragrance a bubblegummy accord. And it's super duper sophisticated. This is one of the most elegant scents that I have. I adore this. No one talks about this next fragrance. I discovered this through my affiliation with So Avant-Garde. Otherwise, this would have never been on my radar. Let me just pause to say that that is one of the biggest benefits of being on PR lists. You get to try new things. So I know people like to put down PR and have all sorts of opinions about it. I'm grateful for it. I appreciate receiving new fragrances to try out. Some work out and some don't. And that's just the nature of perfume, whether you buy it or whether it's sent to you in PR. This is Unica from Antonio Croce. And I didn't know about this brand. The perfumer is Paolo Terenzi of the Tiziano Terenzi family. So he does all of her fragrances too, and all of the Quinto Canto fragrances. Oh, I just love this. It has a very soft oud base to it. Fruits, florals, sweet, another sweet feminine fragrance with a lot of base from the oud, and I believe there's woods in here too. And the bottle is just fun. I've talked about that this reminds me of One World Trade Center. Is that what it's called? Freedom Tower that replaced the former Twin Towers in New York. And I love this. And this is one of the newer fragrances from my haul, and it made it in here because I've been thinking about this ever since I sampled it. I mentioned that the sampling experience was different than the actual bottle experience. And friends, that happens to me more often than people know. And so that's why I always say, yes, sample things first, but if you can, be willing to give the full bottle a chance because it can be a very different experience. Sampling doesn't tell you the whole story. So this is Reflet sur le Cavango from Ella K. I've talked about this ad nauseum, but oh my gosh. I just got it what this reminds me of because it wasn't like the sample or not that close. This reminds me off of Sniff. And I mentioned this, Talia from Marc Antoine Barbois meets Ode to Dullness from Juliet Has a Gun. That's what's happening. One of the prominent notes here is an acacia note. I don't know what acacia smells like. It's like golden sunlight with a sprinkling of department store perfume, a tiny bit of powderiness. It's just vibrant. It's like a very vibrant, happy, golden, sunny, and floral fragrance at the same time. Hard to describe, but just absolutely gorgeous. I've gone on and on and on till the break of dawn about this fragrance. Rania J, Musk Moschus. This just does something to me. It really just, it warms my heart. This is cozy and warm, luxuriously simple or simply luxurious, one or the other. It's musk, there's a little bit of citrus, and there's vanilla. And it is just super duper intoxicating. The only fragrance that comes close to this for me in description is 22 Oris by Letta. And even those two are very, very different. They're like cousins instead of direct sisters or twins, right? But the subtle, feminine, soft, cozy, cotton-like musk, like the feeling of a cotton ball, the feeling of fur, wrap all of that stuff up together and put it in a perfume form. And here you go. Amazing, but subtle and simple. I've raved about this next fragrance. It does not get enough love on YouTube at all. This is Ambre Tabac from Daniel Hosier, my very, very favorite tobacco fragrance. It's tobacco and amber and vanilla, and it's so suitable for gentlemen as well as women. It has enough feminine round edges here that it would play well on anyone. The tobacco is warm and smooth. Like if you've ever tasted the finest cognac and it just has this smoothness to it, that's what the tobacco in here is like. The amber is golden and warm, but it's not suffocating. Like the amber and DUNE can be a little suffocating. Like let's just call it what it is. If you spray too much of this, people will wilt around you. This one, it just has the right balance of amber and the deliciousness of vanilla all in one. Best tobacco by far, hands down, that I've tried anyway. I raved and raved about this next fragrance too because it was a pleasant surprise. I got this from Scent Split and it was a blind buy. That's a lie. I think I sampled it first. I had a decant or something and then ordered the full bottle because I thought it was just so beautiful. Francesca Del Oro, and this is Vanille 12 or Vanille Noon or whatever. This is a warm, easygoing vanilla. It's got pear, if I remember correctly. There's a sweetness from pear. A very subtle vanilla scent. This isn't a screamer, a powerhouse. It is sweet and warm, but it doesn't smell gourmandy. It's got some other fruits and florals that I don't remember, but it's beautiful. It's creamy. It's easygoing. Another sort of hug in a bottle. Musk Moschus, Vanilla 12. Vanille. Did I say vanilla? Oh my God. Pardon me. Vanille 12. Musk Moschus can be good friends. These two run in the same clique. This one leans more musky. This one leans more vanilla, but beautiful. And I think this also has a little bit of musk in the base, if I remember correctly. I've probably raved about all these fragrances, so let me stop saying that. Next up, from Fragrance Dubois is Voyage à Paris. Not a feminine fragrance, Okay, let me just say that for those of you that enjoy definitively feminine fragrances, this is not for you. To me, this is more unisex. It has some feminine touches in it. It's another vanilla fragrance with some woodiness. This also has some other interesting exotic notes in it, like tobacco, and I can't remember what else. And I feel like the image that came to mind is this is the smell of the coat check of the rich and famous. Like they're all wearing these really opulent scents and they sort of mix together in this sweet cloud of beautiful perfume that is deep and sultry. This is a very, very sultry fragrance, super duper intoxicating. One of the best vanilla woody fragrances in my collection. It's one of those that I do drive-by sniffs because it's intoxicating. And then a fragrance I don't really hear anyone talking about. This is in the older bottles of Amouage. This is Beach Hut. They're older if they have I think that's true. Correct me if I'm wrong. If they have the name on the side. This is my first Amouage fragrance that I actually purchased because I found it at a great discount. I think it was on Fragrance Net. I feel like I've been talking about a lot of woody fragrances and with good reason. I have to look up the notes on this because there's a specific note in here that I'm going to forget to talk about that makes the fragrance. Oh, actually, this is funny. It's driftwood, but that's not the note I was talking about. There are mineral notes in this fragrance. So it is an incredibly luxurious, very sophisticated woody fragrance with mineral notes. As I'm smelling it, and I've never smelled this before, but I'm feeling like this has a little touch of like a men's cologne type of vibe, yet it's brought back into like the weird and wonderful space of Amouage with those mineral notes and the woodiness of it. This is one you have to try before you buy because it is bizarre. It goes into the territory of bizarre and strange. If you have not experienced a wide variety of perfumes, this is going to be really off-putting, but it grew on me and it just feels so sophisticated on skin as a primarily woody fragrance with those mineral facets in the background. Beautiful. Moving on to the second 25, again, in no special order. And some of my longtime favorites are in this bunch. I don't know how they ended up in this bunch versus the other one, but let's talk about Angel's Share. Often imitated, sometimes kind of sort of duplicated. I mean, there are a lot of fragrances that smell similar to this, but this is probably my favorite of that fall appley, boozy, spicy bunch of fragrances. In fact, I have purchased fragrances that smell like this and have sent them out the door, enjoyed them, but sent them out the door eventually because this one reigns supreme along with Ojan and a few others that I have. But this is the one that got me into this fragrance profile. In fact, I remember Stephanie Letta here on YouTube. I'm going to talk about some of her fragrances coming up, mentioning that she wore this out. This was years ago when this first came out. And she wore this at the mall and had this scent trail of cinnamon, apple pie booziness following her, and that people came up and complimented her. And I was very susceptible to influence at that time and purchased this immediately. I'm still susceptible to influence. Like, who am I kidding? I love watching reviews and getting recommendations from all of my peers here on YouTube. But this one really, really won my heart. It was very expensive for me at the time. Now this seems like child's play in comparison to some of the fragrance prices, even just a few years later. But one of the most beautiful, original, capture my heart, fall sort of spicy apple pie fragrances. There's booze, there's woodiness. It's magnificent to me. In terms of like marshmallow scents, one of my favorites, there's several, is Commodity Milk. And this is the bold version. I have the expressive version that has the, I think, white lettering on it as well. And I like that one a lot too. Of the two, this is my favorite, although I could go for either one. It's got this creamy marshmallow accord with a little bit of woodiness in the background. It smells so delectable and very much like a sweater weather fragrance, something that you would put on underneath a big cowl neck sweater, a cashmere sweater or something to give you that fall cozy vibe. So think really creamy marshmallow texture along with, I think there's vanilla in the fragrance, but don't quote me on that, and definitely some woodiness that is beautiful. Love this fragrance and lasts forever. This one takes me well into the evening when I wear it. So I think I have a few Stephanie Letta fragrances. Her brand is called Letta, her last name Ledda. This one is 22 Oris, the first one that she put out, and I enjoyed this from the minute that I smelled this. This is one of my favorite work fragrances. I have a travel spray of this that I take with me. In fact, wore it recently in DC for a trip. This has this, again, to use the term, dense powderiness to it, a creaminess. I feel like it has some pear or light, bright, fruity notes. There's vanilla. There's certainly Oris 22. And I want to say sandalwood in the base. I love the subtle, light, airy femininity of this fragrance, very appropriate for all age groups, and particularly young ladies might enjoy this scent profile. It reminds me a lot of when people spray perfume in their hair. A lady sprays a light, bright perfume in her hair, and she walks by, and you get that sort of waft of something creamy, soft, fruity maybe. This gives me that sort of sense, the feeling that you get from that waft of someone's beautifully smelling hair. 22 Oris, beautiful. I recently purchased this next fragrance on advice from one of our fragrance friends here in Arkansas, Jackie. I think her name is Safai. If I said that wrong, Jackie, I apologize. But Jackie, hey girl, hey, she said that she really likes Prada Candy Kiss. I ended up purchasing a tester. It actually says that here, like it's printed on here. But this was one where I didn't mind purchasing the tester because the top comes attached to it. When you purchase testers, you might not get the cap. You may get just the bottle. Anyway, this is such a fun, sweet, light, playful, musky fragrance. This is like a Your Skin, but better with musky sweetness and some powderiness to it as well. Great for bedtime, great for running errands, great for like t-shirt and jeans when you want to smell light and feminine and have this sweetness about you that isn't something that's obvious. Like people wouldn't go, oh, you're wearing perfume, but you would just smell lovely. Prada Candy Kiss, great. I think this is actually discontinued. Sadly, I'm not quite sure, but you can find it on the gray market. I have raved endlessly recently about Duchessa from Gritty with these nasty fingerprint marks. I apologize. I can never get it right before I put it up. Anyway, fingerprints aside, this smells how the bottle looks. I won't go into a lot of detail except to say that this is a beautiful, very deep, exotic, super sexy cherry fragrance that has a touch of booziness. And I believe there's amber in the base, or maybe not. Maybe it's woody, but there is a substantial base. And it is like gothic sexiness in a bottle. This is so good and nicely lasting too. Very, very expensive. So see if you can get a discount code or get this on sale. This next fragrance reminds me a lot of Baccarat Rouge 540, the original, not the extra. And so that is the reason that I purchased this. I was like on this anti-BR 540 kick for a while. Well, for what? Because I really like the scent profile. I do have a little like mini travel spray of it, and I have the extrait of BR 540 thanks to our lovely fragrance friend at the channel, Naturally Liz. Hey girl, hey, and thank you so much for your beautiful gift. I love it, the extrait. But this reminds me a lot of the original, and this is Trajan from Electimus. It smells a lot like BR 540, almost identical, except this has like a bubbly citrus note at the top that makes this a little bit brighter and even airier than the original BR 540 and has great lasting power. It has that saffron, like soft, airy, maybe kind of sort of leathery feel that a saffron note can give. It's very wispy, has like a woodiness to it. There's sweetness and there's citrus, and it's a powerhouse of a fragrance. So I love this. If and when I run out of this, I think I would get the original BR 540, or if I get that, I would probably then sell this, but they're beautiful. And this one has that added like citrus zest to it. Juice Box Cheeky Smile. What a fun fragrance in that it's super duper easygoing, pencil shavings kind of a smell. It gives me vibes of Eccentric Molecule oh 01 with that simple, clean, airy, woody notes. This is a lot like that, except it has a little bit more depth. I think this also has amber alongside the woodiness, and there's a touch of sweetness, even though this has a very, very woody, light, wispy tone to it. Very easy wearing and warms up nicely on the skin. If you're familiar with Juice Box, these are supposed to mimic records, like vinyl records, and this little part glows in the dark, and I think the sides glow in the dark as well. Let's go to Acro Glow, again with the damn fingerprints. Damn it, bottles! So I purchased the 1 ounce of this a while back, and then this larger bottle was sent to me by So Avant Garde and PR. I'm so grateful because these bottles are a little pricey. I think they're in the 200 some odd range. This is an easygoing, very happy vanilla amber fragrance. I get more vanilla than amber, and this reminds me very much of Gentle Fluidity Gold, that sort of easygoing, everyday vanilla that has a level of like classiness, timelessness, and elegance to it. I really, really enjoy this fragrance. Some people pick up a little bit of smokiness in this, and I think some people have even described it as having like a spicy texture. Maybe I've described it that way. I don't know. But it's definitely a soft, easygoing vanilla, mostly with some amber. This is a pricey one. I love it. And I like this version of the bottle. This is from the House of Beau, and this is called La Mar. This started my House of Beau obsession. This is a super expensive house. They have bottles. So let me back up. There's 2 versions of bottles, 2 lines. This version has like a travertine type of top on it. The other version has a metal plate on it, and it has a stone top that could be out of like granite or marble or something else. Anyway, I do like this travertine. It reminds me a lot of my trips to Cancun and areas south of Cancun, some of the sleepy fishing towns along the way, and the big resorts that are all the way down the coastline of the Mayan Riviera that have a lot of travertine in their hotels. The fragrance is called La Mar, like the sea. And wow, one of the most edited, restricted, pared back fresh, ocean smelling fragrances. There are florals. I believe there's tuberose and other white florals in the fragrance. A sense of like a waft of perfumey sea air. It doesn't smell pungent like sea air can smell sometimes. It's just like the thinnest version of that, along with the florals. It's very, very soft. Some people don't like that for the price tag. That doesn't bother me. I find this to be an incredibly elegant summer fragrance that reminds me of white linen flowing in the sun. Beautiful. Then we have a fragrance that went absolutely viral, I think at the top of maybe the end of 2023, 2024, somewhere in there, I don't remember. And it's from House of Sillage and it's called Hufflepuff. This bottle reminds me very much of my trips to Universal Studios. I love going to Universal and Disney. Like, if I could make that my job to just go to the parks, I would. That would be awesome. This is an airy, sweet vanilla with some soft coconut tones to it. There's like a powderiness to it. This is another one that feels light in texture. Light, wispy vanilla with hints of coconut. I believe there's a fruity note if I'm not mistaken, but I don't remember. I get mostly vanilla, some coconut, and just like this wispy, airy powderiness in it. Beautiful, and I love the cupcake. Give it up for Givenchy Amarige. This is a super duper beautiful, very loud, but gorgeous floral and amber fragrance. And I believe it also has some woodiness. I can't even tell you what the notes are here because there's so much happening in this fragrance. It's one of those, when you go look at the note pyramid, it's enormous. There's so much happening in here. I find this to be a matronly, very mature scent. This is your auntie or mother or even grandmother's hug in a bottle with a beautiful, big, creamy, in your face florals. This is a powerful fragrance. I loved it when it came out and I thought it was too much for me. I believe that was in the late 90s, if I'm not mistaken. And later on in life, I ended up purchasing a bottle when I thought I was womanly enough to wear it because this is one of the most feminine fragrances and very loud and powerful and projecting. And dare I say, like a man magnet, men love this fragrance. Love it. Next is Santal Vanille from the Seven Virtues. This is a little bit more on the affordable side. Again, that's all relative, right? Because fragrance prices are insane, but this is, if I'm not mistaken, under $100 unless they've raised their prices since the last time I checked. This is exactly what it says it is. It's mostly a sandalwood fragrance. I will say, if you are the kind of person that picks up the sandalwood note as smelling like pickles or dill pickles, this is going to smell like dill pickles to you. I don't get that. I'm lucky, I think, in that I don't smell dill at all. I just smell beautiful, like a dry, woody sandalwood. There's some creamy sandalwood versions too, which is why I said that. It is a dry, arid sandalwood with a layer of vanilla that really blooms on skin. When you smell it from the atomizer, the vanilla is not very apparent, but as you wear it, you get that. And there's like this, even though it's dry, there's also this like lusciousness to this smell as well. You haven't seen me talk about this one for a while because I haven't worn it in a while, and there's a reason why. But I have this thing for it, like this affinity for it. I'm drawn to it. This is Snowy Owl from Zoologist. So I played around with the Zoologist line a while back and tried out a lot of their scents. I do still have a few on my radar. I love the uniqueness of this. If you have watched me for a while, a few years ago, I spent a lot of time talking about the owls in our backyard. It's almost like a sanctuary back there. There's a creek, there's a wooded area, and on occasion we will hear owls hooting. Hoo, 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 hoo. Something like that. Anyway, I really, really love the little owl with the capelet on here. And these bottles are unique. You see the slope here? There's something about the attention to detail that went into this bottle that I really enjoy. That aside, the fragrance itself, it says Snowy Owl. And oh my God, it smells, if you have ever handled clean birds, the smell of their feathers. It's like, it's musky, it's a little airy, there's a cleanliness to it, it's soft. There's also something like slightly metallic in this, and it's not a fragrance that I would wear often, but there's some nostalgia to this, and it's very novel because it smells like clean bird feathers. And I'm talking about the soft underside of feathers. If you know, you know, and this captures that smell. A crowd-pleasing scent that not many people talk about at all. This is Juliet Has a Gun Pear Ink. When this first came out, people were expecting it to smell like sweet pear. I love a good sweet pear note. It's one of my favorite notes in perfumery. This one smells like a clean, light musk. That's the base of it. And the pear is like a very fresh pear, like a pear that is not ready to cut yet. It's not completely ripe. When you cut it and you smell it, it has a fresh sweetness to it, whereas a ripe pear has like a, I don't know, it's almost like a sugary sweetness. The fresh sweetness is what's happening in here. I want to say there are some floral notes in here, but the primary players are the clean, fresh musk and a really sort of unripened clean pear smell. I've worn this to work events as well and gotten compliments. This next fragrance is discontinued. It is a powerhouse fragrance, one of my all-time favorites, and it will absolutely nauseate and choke you out if you spray too much of it. If you like what I'm about to describe and you find this on the gray market, snatch it up. This is the original Narciso in the white cube with the sort of creamy top on it, like a milky white cube. I really like this line of fragrances overall. I've had a number of them through the years, enjoyed them, passed them along. This one has stood the test of time. I'm babying this bottle. I wore it recently, so you'll hear about it, I think, in my fragrance awards for February. The primary player is gardenia and a heavy musk. There is several types of Narciso musk, and one of the types is this very heavy, dense, almost like a humid musk. Like think about clouds in the sky, and some are light and wispy and airy, and then there are thunderclouds. This is like a thundercloud of musk. It also has a very distinct woody base. I think it's cedar and some other woody notes. If you don't like woody bases and if heavy musk isn't your thing, this is going to feel like it is suffocating you. If you do like that and you spray lightly, this is one of the most beautiful gardenia fragrances. It has a touch of rose as well, and it's very distinct, very feminine, very sophisticated, another matronly, almost like motherly scent, and I adore it. It has just this level of intoxication when you sniff it. It keeps you coming back for more. I mean, my husband absolutely adores this on me, as long as I don't spray heavy. If I spray too heavy, he feels like he's choking out, but gorgeous. Newer on the market, and one that I fell in love with when I purchased it, it's Vanilla Skin by Floral. I think I purchased a travel spray of this first. This is simple. It is a dense, like vanilla with a touch of woody base. I think some people pick up a smokiness in this, but it's dense. It has like this creaminess to it. And I love that it's called Vanilla Skin, like a Your Skin but better vanilla. This is not a very heavy projecting fragrance. It's a little closer to the skin. These little bottles are cute, and it's just an easy reach if you are a vanilla lover. Beautiful. You all know that I reachesly it's time for me to go to sleep. Today is Super Bowl Sunday, and so I'm trying to film this quickly so I can go downstairs and enjoy my wings, and I'm gonna make popcorn. I'm not gonna do chili, and I'm not gonna do nachos. I wanna do those, but I'm just gonna do wings and popcorn. Those are gonna be my snacks, and maybe a glass of wine. Anyway, I recently purchased from Guerlain Fève Gourmand, which is the newly redone Gourmand Cocan. Absolutely fan-freaking-tastic, perfumey chocolate smell. The chocolate is subtle, as I said before. The perfumey notes stand out more, and I think there's patchouli in the base of this, and it is glorious. Let me spray. Mm, 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 mm. It smells like just this very decadent waft of chocolate in the air with a lot of perfume layered on top and creaminess and butteriness and base and maybe a little patchouli. Is there patchouli? Let me look that up because I've been saying that in a few videos now. There is patchouli. Since I looked up the notes, there's also a little booziness to this, but it just feels, it's intoxicating. It's rich, decadent. It has a little bit of old school flair, but in like a Hollywood glamour kind of way. One of my best expensive purchases of the year. Well, so far, because it's only February. It's only February, maybe of ever. One of my best expensive purchases of ever. There you go. Then another Letta fragrance, 20 Bourbon Brulee. Oh my God, this is another sort of boozy vanilla. I think there's caramel in here, sweet fragrance. Has a lot of depth, a lot of body, yaddy, yaddy. This one and Fève Gourmand, these could go out on a date together and be a perfectly paired couple. In fact, I assume that you can layer one with the other if you would like. I'm not a big layering person, but for those of you that like that, this might be a great, great combo to smell somewhat edible, not, completely gourmand, super sophisticated, perfumey, boozy, intoxicating. People are going to want to sniff you wearing either one of these. This is really, really good. Then I've recently talked about Banana Republic's Orris Vanille, one that I think is really slept on. This is part of their newer, what is it called? The Collezione Riservata. I try, people. So Orris, the Orris note, which is, just like this creamy powderiness, vanilla. This has a little bit of like a lotion, like a fresh lotion with perfume in it smell. And there's an apple note that I think is fantastic. I think it's apple blossom, but to me it comes across like a sweet apple note. This is fantastic. Again, another sort of affordable, relatively speaking, gem because it's right at the 100 or 110 range for the whole bottle and beautiful. I can't say enough good things about the next fragrance and that and the original as well as the reformulation. This is Michael Kors. The one bad thing I can say is that the atomizer on this sucks and they eventually leak after a while. This bottle hasn't started leaking on me, but I do have the original Michael that's up on my vintage shelf and it's in the back and I'm saving that for when I really really want the blast of the original because this is super duper close. It's a great substitute. In fact, I think we sometimes speculate about reformulation and don't know what the hell we're talking about. But this is close enough if it is a reformulation. What does it smell like? Another one of these big, bold florals. This one came out in either 2000 or 2001 and was mega sophisticated, too big. You know how people talk about, oh, she's too much woman for me. This was too much woman for me in 2000 or 2001, whenever it first came out. Similar to Amarige in terms of like the boldness of both of these fragrances. This is a huge floral fragrance. Majority of the fragrance is a tuberose experience. There are other white florals, but this is one of the classic, big, bold tuberose fragrances of its time. Love. I always want this in my collection, and I always feel glamorous and feminine and powerful when I wear Michael. Y'all know I've been in love with the House of Whittian lately. I have two here, although really any one of the ones on my shelf could have made it into this top 100, but I picked the two that I thought were the most intriguing and interesting and that were memorable for me. Although now I'm second guessing myself because there are others that I also love. Excuse me, pardon me, I have three Whittians here. Wow, go Whittian. The first is Vanillas in this beautiful cherry bottle, which I just love. This has some masculine touches to it, so those of you that like feminine leaning fragrances may want to skip this or sample first. I don't even know how to describe what I'm smelling, except that it feels very winter heavy to me, like cold weather fragrance. I definitely am picking up woody notes, amber, maybe vanilla, maybe there's saffron, some florals. If I had to associate like a human picture with this, it is a man in a very, very crisp suit. Although the name Vanillas, the way that this is advertised, if I'm not mistaken, is like it has a tropical feel. So there's palm leaves in the advertisement and all this stuff, but I picture really clean, linear suits like a man with a beautiful like androgynous fragrance on that smells good on anyone, gender neutral, unisex, whatever you want to call fragrances that smell good on everyone. This has this mystery and intoxication to it. I can't even describe it. So you'll just have to look this up and check out reviews and see what you think. Then in a similar bottle is Liwa, and this smells like Baccarat Rouge 540 combined with Side Effect and maybe something else. It's airy, it's deep, it's mysterious. This is another one that's really hard to describe. Let me look up some notes for y'all so I sound like I know what I'm talking about here. The main accords, according to good old Fragrantica, warm, spicy, amber, woody, aromatic. Another one like Vanillas that if you like traditional feminine smelling fragrances, you may want to try these first before you take the plunge, and they're pricey fragrances too. They're 50 mils and I think they come in at like 270 something at this point, maybe a little bit higher than that. Let me just talk about the third Whittian, even though I said I wasn't going to talk about it by house, but these just happen to come up together. Whittian Rose Arabia White. I talked about when I sniffed this fragrance, it was like, ah, like the heavens opened up and angels, little cherubs came dancing around my head. And every time I sniff it, I have that same reaction. There is a sweetness, a powderiness, a delicate elegance to this fragrance that's floral and sweet at the same time, not gourmand leaning sweet, a very sort of subtle sweetness combined with like the most fantastic subtle powder accord. And it's indescribably beautiful to me, indescribably beautiful. It's like the fluffiest, softest cotton balls combined with petals of flowers with a misty powderiness floating through the air, like a fog of powderiness in the air, and is just high femininity here. Gorgeous. We all know and either love or are not impressed with Acro Bake. I happen to be impressed with it and enjoy the sweetness. It's like a sugary lemon with something baked in the background. I mean, it's called bake. So imagine like the smell of cake wafting in the distance, not right up in your face, but like, you know, that cake is baking in the house somewhere, something like that. And you have a lemony dessert with like a sugar crusted on top. Something like that is what this is. And it's fantastic. Maybe not the longest lasting, but that's true of a lot of lemon vanilla types of lemon sweet vanilla fragrances. They typically don't last super duper long. Maybe one on the market does, but I still love this. And it's one that it's worth respraying every, 4 to 6 hours or so. Gorgeous. Then my wedding scent. I've been criticized for wearing this to a wedding because some people find it obnoxious. I don't care. I think it is one of the most beautiful fragrances ever made, and the one that has garnered me the most compliments from men. Even before I was married, I was wearing this to work, and all of my male coworkers loved it on me in like the most platonic way possible. Of course, this is the original Alien. I have been through a couple of bottles of this already. Some people say this smells like grape juice to them. I can see that. I understand like that Welch's grape juicy kind of thing. There's jasmine and amber as primary notes, and I sprayed it on the inside of my hand. There's also something that smells like fresh, new plastic. If you like the smell of plastic when it's new, like plastic toys or something like that, there's like a hint of that in here. It also has this specific type of density to it that I really appreciate. This is a man killer fragrance. Man killer fragrance, probably number one of all the fragrances I have ever tried. This is the one. If you want attention, ladies or gentlemen, if you want attention from men in particular, this is the one. That rounds out the first 50, again, in no particular order at all. If you're still here at the end, can you give me a high five, like a hand in the comments, so I know that you made it and stuck with me through this super long video? I will try to do the next 50 soon and post it for you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sticking around. Take care. Have a good one.